Companion is out in theaters, feature debut of director Drew Hancock, starring Sophie Thatcher, Jack Quaid, Lucas Gage, Harvey Guillermo, and Rupert Friend. It's a fantastic movie, very much in the vein of recent films such as Bodies, 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 Blink Twice, Abigail, and to a bit of a lesser extent Barbarian. Movies which I think it's safe to say are now creating their own subgenre, which I'm tempted to call neo-slasher. They all do have slasher film roots, or at least horror film roots. They all combine the thrills and the terror with tongue-in-cheek comedy and humor that crucially does not veer over into pastiche territory. And they all seem very in touch with the young generations of today, with the culture as well as the technology, but again, in a totally good way. Now, this is one of those movies which are best watched completely cold, without knowing anything about them. So I'll do this review in two parts. The first half of this review will be spoiler-free, to preserve some surprise for you, and then I'll go into more detail. So if you're interested, or if you've already seen the film and want to know what I thought about it, you can listen to that as well. Alright, so the bare bones of the plot are that a young woman travels together with her boyfriend to a remote but luxurious cabin in the woods for a weekend getaway. There are some friends already there, and the cabin, or the mansion, belongs to one of the friends' new boyfriend, an ultra-rich Russian guy. And then the Russian guy gets killed, and then things quickly unravel from there. And that's as much as I'm saying in this spoiler-free part. What you need to know is that the movie is excellent. It's clever, witty, funny, entertaining, tense when it needs to be, hysterical when you least expect it to. It's got a tight story that thematically also touches on the nature of relationships, toxic masculinity, control, sense of entitlement, greed. It's got great performances. I mean, Sophie Thatcher is exceptional, but all of the supporting players are really fun too. I think casting Huey from The Boys Kind of Against Type works really well. And Rupert Friend is having the time of his life in the brief time that he's playing the Russian. The attention to detail is fantastic, and I'll speak more about that later. I love the music, I love the editing. It is a blast. And that's it for the short version. It's a glowing recommendation to run to the movie theater, check this one out immediately. Now here's the part where I spoil some things, so be advised. Alright, so I really liked the vibe of the film in terms of taking huge inspiration from all those neo-slashers that I've mentioned, but also being clearly influenced by things like Ex Machina and Blade Runner. I think that makes for a very unique combination. I think the twists of the story are executed fantastically well. I was vaguely aware that this is a movie about a robot, so the first one was kind of obvious. Although I will say, if you don't know it's coming, I think the bits of foreshadowing right from the first scene are kind of incredible. And then the subsequent twists are also very well done and kind of obvious in retrospect, but unexpected in the moment. So, the best kind. I mentioned that I love the little bits. There's a short but hysterical bit about the Russians' passwords being Stalin's birthday that cracked me up. There's a great little moment with how loud the revolver is, which the characters comment on. Fantastic instance of a Chekhov's gun introduced right at the beginning and being fired right at the end. Let me think. There's also a moment, which is a scene, it's a flashback scene, and it's a dance scene where characters are dancing in these ridiculous Halloween costumes, and the scene is done twice for reasons relevant to the plot, but the scene is done twice with two different sort of sets of actors. And I was watching it, I was thinking there really wasn't a need to do this scene twice. In fact, I think the movie could have worked without even doing it once. We had this scene described by a character beforehand. We didn't need to see this, but it feels like a scene where the crew and the filmmakers just went, why won't we just shoot it, and why won't we just do it twice because it's so fun? And it's clear the actors in the scene are having a blast, and they just did it because they could, and I really love that approach to filmmaking. I absolutely also loved the scene where the robot gets shot in the head towards the end, and it seems like the whole thing is completely over, and my immediate reaction and thought was, fuck, I wish one of these days there was a movie that realized there's nothing stopping the makers of robots to putting all the important bits inside, like the processor or the memory or what have you, inside the body, not inside the head. It's not a real human, so the brain does not have to be here, because it's such an obviously vulnerable place. And then 5 minutes later, it turns out that's exactly what they've done in this film, which almost made me cheer loudly at the screen. So yeah, I loved it through and through. I can't think of a single element that didn't work for me. It's one of the better movies of the year so far, although admittedly it is just February, but I expect it to stay high up on on my list as the year progresses. It's a great piece of entertainment. Check it out for sure.